Welcome to Brave New Bookshelf, a podcast that explores the fascinating intersection of AI and authorship. Join hosts Steph Pajonas and Danica Favorite as they dive into thought-provoking discussions, debunk myths, and highlight the transformative role of AI in the publishing industry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to an episode of the Brave New Bookshelf. I'm Steph Pajonas, CTO of Future Fiction Academy, where we teach authors how to use AI in any part of their process. This is the third interview we've done this week, and we are on high, having all these guests in to talk to them and talk about AI and publishing and writing and all the good stuff. And this is what I love to do, talk to my friends and colleagues about all this cool stuff that's happening in our business. And I'm, of course, joined by my lovely co-host, as always, Danica Favorite. How are you doing today, Danica?
I'm good. Yeah. So it's funny. You're like, yeah, this is the third one we've done with this week. Obviously, we release them weekly, so you're not going to get 3 in 1 week. But it is nice because all this work we're doing now, it'll hopefully be nice to stagger it out later so that we might have some breathing room, and that would be fun. But, like Steph, I love talking about this stuff. So it doesn't feel like work. It's all the stuff after the interview that becomes the work. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Danica Favorite. I am the community manager at Publish Drive, where we help authors and publishers at every stage of their journey, from formatting the manuscript to getting the perfect metadata and book descriptions, as well as book covers, and then distributing their books, and then finally helping them split royalties. So a lot of cool stuff we do. And then we've got people at the FFA who are teaching people how to write the book. So between both of us, we have all the things to be able to get you to get those stories out there into the world. And speaking of getting people out into the world, I have to tell you, we've got Kevin McLaughlin here today. He is out of this world. Look at that cool spaceship behind him. I'm just going to be real honest. I'm going to speak for both of us. He's one of our favorite people. We both love Kevin. We have been trying to get him on the podcast for a while, and it's taken forever to get schedules to mesh. If you're in the AI for Authors group, he is also one of the moderators with us. And I just always really appreciate Kevin's perspective. There are times when I'll see something controversial, be like, wait, what would Kevin say? So Kevin is our voice of reason. We absolutely love and adore him. And he's got some really great things to say about AI in publishing. And honestly, I'm going to just tell you straight up, if you are ever looking for that more balanced view and looking for someone who's going to search out the facts before coming up with an opinion, Kevin is your guy. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our good friend, Kevin. Kevin, tell us about yourself.
It's great to be here with you folks, first off. I was really embarrassed the last week when a couple of people in the 20 Books group said they were going to print up buttons that said, "What would Kevin say?" and start passing that at conferences. So please don't do that, actually. My secret around that stuff really is that I don't talk about something unless I'm fairly sure I know about it. And I usually look it up and I find out everything I can first. Then I try and pass out the right information to folks. I think that information empowers all of us. And if we can get good, solid information about the full story of something, then that helps every author. That's why I do it. Me, though, I write science fiction and fantasy. You can see from the background. And I've got 108 novels published over the last 13, 14 years now. I was one of the early indies. So I wasn't the first wave, but I was like right after them. It took me about 6 years to go full time. And I've been full time now since 2017. I'm still writing a whole bunch of books. I've had about 52 of those 108 books were trad published through small publishers like LMBPN and Shadow Alley. But the majority of my stuff is indie, and I'm doing mostly indie these days too.
That's awesome. I love this variety of authors that we have on our show in terms of that variety of where you're at in your publishing journey and how long you've been publishing, because I think it's really interesting to see you're not the new kid on the block. You've been doing this a while. Trends come and go. And so like you've been able to spot, okay, wait, is this a trend or is this something we should take a look at? And I think AI in publishing is one of those things. So that is great for me to ask my very first question that I like to ask people. And how are you approaching AI in publishing? What's been your approach since it's come on the scene?
I heard about AI really early. Like I heard about how the AI was going to impact publishing from Joanna Penn, I think back in 2016 or something like that. She was on the ball really early on. And I was like, oh my gosh, if she's paying attention to this, I should probably pay attention to it too. So I started like watching for more information as it popped up. And so when the very first chatbots were coming up, I was like, okay, let's get in there. Let's test this stuff out. Let's find out what the scoop is. Let's make this stuff work. When Midjourney opened up, I was in there trying to figure out how to use it, how to make art. What can we do with this tool? That's the question I'm pretty much always going to ask is where does it fit into what I'm doing? But also where does it fit into the overall picture? Because any major change to publishing is going to impact all of us in some way or another. No matter how we end up personally choosing to use something, understanding how it impacts the overall industry as a whole, that sort of education just improves things for everybody, I think.
And so when you got in and you were like, hey, let's check out Midjourney, let's check out these new tools, what was your first impression of them and how did you feel like they were going to fit into your processes?
They were weak and terrible and they couldn't do very much. But oh my gosh, I had an existential crisis because I knew it wasn't going to take long for them to improve. So I was looking at those early Midjourney images that I made. Some of them are really beautiful. This is actually a fairly early Midjourney. And it's gorgeous. So I actually keep it around because I really like it. I wouldn't use it on a cover. It's not quite that good, but it's pretty. I like it. But as Midjourney improved, as all of these apps improved, I realized this is definitely going to have a long-term impact. This is definitely going to change the way I do things. So I need to study this stuff as much as possible. The more I saw, the more I realized that this was something I couldn't ignore. No matter how I decided to end up using or not using it, it was definitely going to impact my job. It was definitely going to impact my profession. And I couldn't not pay attention to it. And then Michelangelo invited me to help play around with some of his stuff, and Tanya with the AI art for authors first. And then AI writing for authors came up like right afterwards. But I wanted to get involved in this stuff because it is cutting edge. It is going to impact all of us in a wide variety of ways. So I wanted to understand.
I had that same existential crisis that you did. And I'll never forget it.
We all had that crisis, and
I will
here we
never
are.
forget it. I will never forget it. And then my existential crisis happened in pseudo-write when I tried it for the first time, and I saw that when I gave it a whole chapter and I was asking for help with stuff, that it understood context and it understood everything around it. And that was my moment. I think my soul may have receded from my body for a moment. And I was like, oh no, oh crap. Like, I could not believe what I was seeing. And it was just that moment. I feel that moment in my life where I knew that this was going to be world-changing technology and that things were going to change significantly after that. And I remember going to Facebook and being like, guys, I just saw the most amazing thing. And nobody else had the same reaction I did. And I'm still like, I still look back on that and think, whoa. Whoa, that was a big point in my life. And I'm right there with you because it was a crisis. It was an absolute crisis.
I faced it earlier because I was working for a publisher doing their marketing, and my boss hands me this AI tool and says, great, now you can start writing all your marketing copy and stuff with it. And I'm like, oh crap. And this is like even years and years before this all came up for authors. And I'm like, oh crap. This is actually good. Now I look at it, I'm like, oh, that was garbage, but it was good. And I'm like, I'm going to be out of a job. And it is, it's amazing.
I think we all have that crisis, and that's okay.
I think it's a crisis that's ongoing in a lot of ways for a lot of people. I hit a critical point really last summer where I was going to do a series of books, a trilogy, using AI to write them. Wrote the first chunk of one of the books, realized I was being miserable with it. I wasn't enjoying the revision, the cleanup work that I was going to have to do. So I dumped it entirely. I rewrote the book from scratch, wrote the entire trilogy and from scratch. And I realized what was happening was that every time I was using the AI, the creating the stuff was really fun. But for me, the drafting, the art of creating the work is always the most fun part of things. And I spent several years and several million words learning to draft well enough that I didn't have to do much revision, if any. And so what I found that AI was doing was it was adding all of this tons of revision time. It was shortening the part that I loved and adding a whole bunch of the stuff that I didn't. And so for me, it just wasn't working. And I hit the point last summer where I almost quit writing. I almost just gave it up. I almost just stopped. And I was like, this isn't fun. So if I have to use the tool in this way, then I'm going to quit because it's just not fun for me anymore. I ended up deciding not to. I ended up, no, I'm just going to write the books myself. I'm going to use AI in a variety of other ways too. But I'm going to just write the books. I'm going to do the words myself because that's the part I love. That's my fun. And the revision wasn't. Will that always be that way? I have no idea. The thing
Yeah.
about all this stuff is it's an evolving process. So we'll see what happens next year and the year after that. But for now, I do things my way.
And I love that. And I think that is one of the main reasons I wanted you to come on to the show, because you have tried AI writing, you know how to write with AI, and you don't like it. You prefer writing the words yourself. And I think that is one of the points Steph and I are constantly trying to drive home to people is use AI for the parts that you don't like to do, but the parts that you love, keep doing it. You love to write. So keep writing your books because that is what you love and that's what brings you joy. But all the other stuff that you're like, I don't want to do this. Okay, cool. AI do that for me. And I really love and appreciate you being really open about that and saying, this is where my existential crisis led me and why I really struggled as a writer, wondering if I could even write. And here you are, you're writing again, and you've accepted this is what I love, and this is what I'm going to do. But I also love that little caveat where you're like, but it could change, and that you're open to whatever comes your way.
Everything evolves. And I'm never going to say, no, I will never use AI in this way, or no, I'm never going to handwrite another novel again. I once said that. I did. I once said I would never handwrite another novel again. But now I have AI and I can handwrite in a notebook and take a photo of it with my phone and load the photos into ChatGPT and it transcribes it automatically for me. It's almost flawless. It's amazing. My handwriting is horrible and it's really good at picking up my handwriting. So, now I'm back to the point where I can write by hand in a notebook again, and I can just have AI transcribe it automatically for me. I love that because everything old is new again in some ways.
I love
And
this because you've managed to find like all the different parts of your process that were causing you pain, right? Transcribing or any dictation or any of those kinds of things. And then you let AI take those parts and then you kept the ones that you enjoyed for yourself. And I think that's where it needs to be. Absolutely.
Yeah. And me too. Like I have to say, I learn a lot from you, Kevin. Kevin, seriously, he's my sensei. He doesn't really know that, but seriously, I do seriously value Kevin in my life. And that was one of the most transformative things I learned about from Kevin was this idea you could take a picture of your handwriting and it would upload because we were joking about this before we came on. So like right here, this is like that's actually full and I'm stressed about it. I had to start a notebook because everything I do is handwritten and I love handwriting my books. There are pieces I like to handwrite. And so I'll handwrite parts, I'll dictate parts, and I do all of this messiness. And that's my process that makes me happy is it's messy. It was really stressful for me trying to figure out how to transcribe my handwriting. And when Kevin was like, yeah, just take a picture and put it in ChatGPT. And it worked because Kevin, I have terrible handwriting. I was like, oh my gosh, Kevin, you've changed my life. Because it is finding what's old is new again. And all those things you love. One of my projects that I'm going to do, you guys can't see this, but in the bookshelves behind me, you see the size of each shelf. I have two of them full of handwritten notebooks of books I've worked on and then haven't done anything with because I handwrote them.
that's awesome, though. Now you can. That's terrific.
Right?
Yeah, I just bought a couple of new notebooks because although it's slower, than typing and certainly slower than dictation, it's different. And it means that I can leave my computer and my phone at home and go sit someplace and just sit there with a notebook and pen. And I've got no distractions and no notifications popping up or anything else, and I can just write. And even if I'm only getting 1,000 words an hour versus 2,500 from typing or more than that from dictation, that's okay. It's not all about speed.
It's about, again, that finding that joy in what you're doing and finding that happiness. And so many people are in different phases of burnout and things like that. And honestly, when I'm in those exhausted states, I've read a lot of studies about this where actually that process of the handwriting actually is really calming to your nervous system. And it actually does really cool things with your thinking and your thought process. And so I love that we have all of those options. I'm really grateful that you showed me, wow, this is super easy. And God help the world once I get all of those notebooks into the computer, because people are going to be like, oh my gosh, Danica has 1,000 books out. How did that happen?
That would be great. We're looking forward to it.
I'm super jazzed about the fact that there are all of these ancillary sort of out of the box tools that authors can use now for their writing, for brainstorming, for editing and whatnot, including doing lots of stuff with art and whatnot. Just, yeah, I love your Midjourney background there. I love the spaceship. And I know that you use some to make your own covers too, don't you?
I do. I've always made most of my own covers. I've hired some artists sometimes, and I've got some great artists who've done amazing work. But I've also always done most of my own covers, and I've usually used like a bunch of different stock art, put them together, merge them into something new, and make a cover out of it. I'm not the best painter in the world or anything like that, but I've learned over the years enough to do a decent job at it. And what AI does for me is it lets me create stuff with much better stock than I had before. So before I used to buy models, 3D models off model sites, and then I would render those in Photoshop, like a 3D model of a starship, and I would render it in Photoshop, and I'd put in the background, and I'd overpaint it with some other stuff and make it into a cover. If you look at my Satori covers, all of those, the old Satori covers are like that. But now, though, instead, I'm using AI as stock. So this piece here, you won't be able to see it in the podcast, but for the video part, this piece here is a composite of several different images that were created by Leonardo, the Leonardo Phoenix model. And I compiled those into a complete image, and then I did a little overpainting to make them match. If you look closely enough at the cover, you'll probably see the spots where I didn't quite perfectly merge the image together. And that happens, but it's a good cover. And I can make these covers faster, and they're much better quality than the ones I used to make, because the stock is just so much better than the old style stock that I used to have access to. So for me, as a cover designer, AI is an amazing contributor.
I love the fact that we can really get like our vision now. Whereas in the past, it was sort of like, oh, that's close, and even now we can still like things can be off just a little bit, but we're just getting closer and closer and closer to the visions that we have for our characters and our worlds and all that kind of stuff. Are you also using AI art on things like your website? And you have a subscription service too, don't you?
I do. I've got a Patreon that I'm using. This is the full cover for the book for that one right now. Again, AI images, but I've also got smaller clips of that are being used for the Patreon. I use AI images pretty much exclusively for my Facebook ads at this point, because they just convert way better than old school stock did. I write spaceship adventure stories for the most part. Obviously, that one, the one I just showed, is the fantasy one. I write fantasy too sometimes. But if I want to throw a good spaceship up there that's not Starship Enterprise or something other elsewise obvious and copyright protected, then I need to have a good source for those images. And stock just has a very, very slender selection, and all of them have been used really heavily over the last decade. So by using AI to create new images like the one behind me, I'm able to create brand new spaceship images that look great as an ad. And they're just more effective. They're converting much better.
Yeah, I really like that, because I've heard that from actually Mallory Cooper says the same thing, is that the AI images just convert better. And it's so interesting because, again, we hear all of this, people don't want AI art, people don't want AI art. And clearly that's not the case. You may have some vocal people who say they don't like it, but the proof is in the conversion. And those ads are converting for you. So I think that's really fascinating to see that conversion is actually higher for you as well.
I think there are some things that people prefer to have bespoke and carefully created by a human. And there are some things that people don't care about. So I don't need my notebook to be handcrafted. This was made by a machine, I'm sure of it. On the other hand, I might really value, to give an example, I have the very first piece of stained glass art that my daughter made, the first piece that she ever made, and that's still framed. And that's special because it's my daughter, and she made it, and it was carefully crafted by a human. These are things that add up to creating meaning for me, and so I have extra meaning for that thing. That has more meaning than anything made by a machine could possibly ever have. So things like that's a place where human never goes away. But in other areas, we just don't care really if this mug that I'm drinking out of was made by a machine or a person. I could have bought something that was made by a potter on a wheel, and I actually have one like that I really like a lot. But I also like this mug that was made by a machine.
I love that differentiation because I think it just shows there's still an important place for everything. And those things still have meaning and are purposeful and are important. And that craftsmanship, there's always going to be place for it.
Going to the movies didn't kill Broadway. Having the movies didn't kill Broadway. We still go to plays. We still love the immediacy of seeing somebody up on a stage right in front of us. That hasn't gone away. These other things are added on, and they do change the overall picture, but they don't delete the old. They just change the way we interact with it.
We don't have to divide up our love of things. I love to listen to audiobooks. I'm a big fan. And I have a love of audiobooks that are narrated by humans, and I still love audiobooks that are AI audiobooks because they're giving me information that I wouldn't have been able to get otherwise because that author didn't have the opportunity to have a human read audiobook or whatever it may be. I can appreciate both. I don't think that it has to ever be one or the other. And I think that that is where people like us, like all of us here, are moving forward into the future because we're okay with doing either or both, and it's fine, right? If you want to check out and use the AI tools for brainstorming and maybe editing, but you're going to write your whole book because that's what brings you joy. Or somebody like me who I really do not enjoy that first draft process like at all. And I love to edit. I love it. So where our situations are almost completely reversed, Kevin. So I enjoy that.
I love that for you. I love that you're able to get that tool that takes away more of the part that you don't enjoy as much. I think that's terrific.
This is where it gets exciting for all of us because there is something for everybody here. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That is really the exciting part because I imagine that they still do this. I am not in those spaces anymore, but I can remember when I first started writing, there was this war of, are you a plotter or are you a pantser? And one is better than the other. And it isn't. It's what's better for you. And what is the process that works for you? And in my opinion, the beauty and the gift of AI is that it has brought augmentation to processes for everyone, should they choose to use it in however they need that additional help. And I think that's beautiful because everyone can use it in their own way, and we can all learn from each other and appreciate each other, even though it may be different. But I love that a tool that works for me isn't going to work for someone else, but a tool that doesn't work for me is going to work for them.
My personal statement of ethics as far as writing goes, and this is just for me, is that if what I am doing is producing the best possible experience that I can reasonably provide for my readers, then I'm doing it right. If what I'm creating and passing on to them is my best work that I can reasonably produce at that time, then I'm doing it right. I feel like I'm disrespecting the reader if I hand them something that's not my best work. So I always strive to give them something that is the best that I can possibly produce right now. But I think that if we're all doing that, then that's what matters at the end of the day. Respecting the reader and giving them our best work, whatever tools or processes we use along the way, pantsing and plotting both can get to the same goal. They just get there differently. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And I feel the same way about using an AI tool. It's that same principle of as long as you're giving the reader the experience you want to give them, it doesn't matter. We were talking about handwriting. If we handwrote it or we dictated it or we typed it or we told the AI to put our thoughts into something coherent, it doesn't matter. What matters is that ultimate end experience we're giving the readers. And is that something that we as individuals who produced it are proud of? So we talked a little bit about some of your workflow, like how you were originally creating some of these images and things and how you did some of your covers. And I know you use AI in all kinds of different pieces of your process. What do some of your AI workflows look like?
So it depends on the day and depends on the project, really a lot. I actually want to get back to doing more handwriting of books. Again, see notebooks. I haven't done very much of that yet. I've just been playing around with it a little bit. So I want to do more. That's definitely going to become a bigger part of things. I am still a wishful thinking dictator, but I'm not very good at it. But I like doing it, mostly because it lets me take long walks. So I took a break over the cold winter, but now that it's warming back up again, I'm expecting to start taking 2 mile hikes. And I love just being able to get 4,000 words done in my 2 mile hike. And maybe not quite that many words. I think I'd have to walk more for that, but whatever. I love getting some words in. And then I'm getting my fitness in at the same time as I'm getting the words completed. So then I have the AI transcribe it. It's easy enough. Whisper is amazing. I use Mac Whisper for transcription at this point. It's far more accurate than Dragon, and it's a $40 one-time fee. So there's no additional fees and stuff. It's great. Does it right on my computer. It's not sending anything to the internet. I can even do it. You can even use it with the internet turned off. So yeah, I use it for transcribing text. I use it for transcribing voice to text. I've begun using it a little bit more for research than I was. For a while, research was really iffy on the LLMs because they would make stuff up. And I'm still cautious about it because if I want to really know the truth, if I need the absolute correct information, I'll use the AI as a mile high source, like a Wikipedia type source. It's probably in the same ballpark of accuracy as Wikipedia at this point. So it's not flawless, but it's fairly good. And I'll ask it a question, it'll give me an answer, and then it'll also give me links. So the links will let me follow up, because then I can just go to the links and see what those pages say. And I can then get a better idea for whether or not the AI was picking a good source or a bad source, and whether I need to dig deeper or whether I've got good information. I was just using it to research 0-point energy creation a couple of weeks ago, because I'd completely forgotten the theory. It's a science fiction theoretical way of generating power, 0-point energy. And I did not remember my quantum theory enough to remember exactly how it worked, but I needed a little bit more information, and the AI helped both give me the initial information and give me sources that then I could go do more reading in, which is terrific. I routinely use it to make up names for me now. What is a name for a male surgeon about 45 years old who's going to become the villain of this book? Give me 20 ideas, and then I'll pick and choose. I won't pick the same one all the time. I won't pick the first choice. I want choices to choose from, and I'll also sometimes pick one first name and one last name and then go with the combination. So I use it in that way. And what was I just doing the other day? I was brainstorming out some ideas. It's for a story idea that I'm not even writing. This is something for 2026 or 2027, probably. It's something that's in the initial brainstorming process. And I'm like, okay, give me 10 ideas for, I want to do a superhero story, but I don't know if I want it to be science fiction or fantasy. So I was asking it for, how could I do this? How could this person get powers, and how would this create the world if it was science fiction versus if it was fantasy? Give me 10 ideas for each. And it did great. And I'm still not sure which way I'm going to go yet, but it gave me some more food for thought. And so now I'm going to chew on that for the next year or so before I'm finally getting around to writing this story. And when I do get around to writing the story, I'll have had the additional material to work through. I make a lot of my covers with AI at this point, AI stock. That's a dominant way of making covers for me at this point. I will still probably use stock sometimes, but I'm going to lean toward AI stock more than the purchasable stock. I have 500 credits on deposit photos that I'm probably never going to use. Same, yeah.
Do you outline your books before you get started with the writing, or do you just go straight from research into writing?
I sometimes outline them, but usually don't. I usually do more discovery writing. It's like semi-directed discovery writing. So I'll be like, I'm discovery writing this, but I know that I want to start here and I want to end here, and I know that I want to hit these 4 points between along the way. So it's kind of like a trail of breadcrumbs, and then I connect the dots.
I'm familiar with that process. I'm a big fan of James Scott Bell. I talk about him all the time on here, and I understand his superstructure. So whenever I'm discovery writing, I'm just writing towards that next signpost and know what I have to hit along the way. And then I write that. But I've been trying to get my ideas out for the story using AI ahead of time just to give me some sort of outline to work towards. Of course, I usually throw it out by chapter 4, but it gets me started, right?
I find that for writers in general, that a lot of folks early on for the first, when you're in your apprentice period, the first like 10 or 12 books, plotting in advance will make things faster. If you discovery write, you'll probably have a lot more cleanup to do afterwards, a lot more revision afterwards. The more skilled you become as a writer, the more you understand craft and the more you understand how plot and structure work, the more you study that, like study Save the Cat, study the Harmon Story Wheel, study Story by McKee, study Vogler, learn all of that you possibly can about how plot and structure work in story. And then as time goes on, you'll find yourself needing to do less and less of that, I think. I find that at the end, most people who have hit a very high level of mastery and have 100 plus books out are probably leaning toward more discovery writing than plotting. It's not universal even then, and I know it's not, but I think that it's easier to once you have that sort of studying behind you. So if you want to do a real better job as a pantser, study plot, ironically.
I pantsed my first book. We talked about this in another episode, but I decided to use AI to pants a book. And oh my goodness, the structure was terrible. But part of it was also, I intuitively give it the structure. Even when I'm plotting something, I still intuitively have that structure. And I realized because it's intuitive for me, I didn't think to tell the AI, oh, you have to use a structure. So it's funny, like what you learn about writing. And I think at every stage of being an author, you have to study the writing and learn about structure. And even if, you don't use it, I love that Steph quotes James Scott Bell all the time because early in my writing career, I took a lot of his classes in person. And I remember he promised me an endorsement. And so I remember I published my first book. I was like, hey, give me my endorsement. He's, I endorsed Danica. It was all a joke. I won't ever forget that because for me, even though I like the plotting and I like the structure, because I do have to know what happens next, I have to know what I'm leading up towards because I don't want to be surprised. And I know for the discovery writers, they're like, no, I want the surprises. I'm like, no, don't surprise me.
I wanted to make sure that I asked Kevin about what he does with his post process besides covers with AI tools. Are you using it to help you with things like blurbs and Facebook ads and all that kind of stuff?
I have tried with the blurb end of things. I find that it's usually faster for me to just do it myself because I've done so many of them at this point. I did most of my trad blurbs too. So I've done hundreds of blurbs at this point. And I've done well over 100 book descriptions at this point, and it's faster for me to do it than it is for me to clean up the AI's work. The AI is getting better at it though. I don't know that will always be the case. Now that we can feed it an entire book and get a synopsis, and then feed it the synopsis and get sales copy, that's one I will not be sad to hand off. If I hit the point where I can press a couple of buttons and it spits out the sales copy for me, I'll definitely be letting the AI assistant handle that end of things. That's not part of my joy.
I recently created a AI agent that will read a book and use my blurb sort of formula that I have to give me a blurb, and I called it the Blurbinator. I was like, Kevin is his own Blurbinator. He doesn't need the AI Blurbinator that I have. That's awesome. You've written so many books. I'm not surprised that you're really good at blurbs at this point. I wish I had that skill.
It is really a hard skill, I think mostly because authors just can't sometimes see the forest through the trees. They have this part that they really love. I was just talking about this with somebody yesterday because I was teaching her how to use Publish Drive's tool to upload your manuscript and it writes your blurb for you. And one of the things I told her that when I do my own stuff, and even when I was sending pitches to editors, my problem is as a romance author, I actually lean more towards women's fiction. So I always forget to include the romance. And so that's always my big like post-it note. Where is the romance? I have a hard time picking that out because that's actually my favorite part is the women's fiction part. That might tell me something about my author path right there. But it was interesting because I think a lot of authors have that problem. So they think their book is about this when actually it's about this. And I think that goes back to what Kevin was saying about that experience as a writer. The more experienced you are doing it, the more you know, okay, let me help figure out these different pieces. And so even though I'm still bad at it and I don't like it, I at least recognize I'm not good at picking out the romance in my own stuff and I need to work harder to draw that out. That's really important for somebody who isn't necessarily as skilled at figuring those pieces out. The AI can do it for you, and it's so nice.
I think it's really valuable for a writer to understand who their audience is before they sit down to write. Who are you trying to write this for? Are you trying to write this for, in my case, if you like Star Wars and Star Trek, you'll probably like my science fiction books. If you like either of those, I fall into that same wheelhouse. It's adventure, escapist science fiction. It's fun action with a lot of heart and a lot of strong characterization. But ultimately, it's like center mass of the Hollywood science fiction market. And that's good because then I know exactly who I'm aiming for and I know what they like because I like that too. It makes it easier to create for that stuff for them. I do see authors coming up every once in a while saying, I've got this thing that I wrote that's YA and adult and historical and a romance, and it's got some time travel, so there's a little science fiction too. And I'm like, okay, so which of these markets was it written for, though? Because that's the ultimate question. You might have something that'll appeal to many audiences. That's a good thing. Shakespeare, the reason we still read him today is because he was able to appeal to so many different audiences at the same time. But that's a masterwork, should be able to appeal to multiple audiences. But especially in our early craft, it's better to focus because then we can try and create something that's deliberately designed to appeal to that specific audience. A stand-up comedian is going to tell a very different routine for a group of Cub Scouts than he would at an adults-only nightclub.
I love that analogy. That's a really good analogy because you're right. I can get away with straddling romance and women's fiction because they're adjacent enough. But when you've got 10 different genres and you're like, it's a bit of this and a bit of that, a bit of that. Okay, but what audience are you targeting and who do you really want to read those books? And that's really important because unfortunately, none of us are Shakespeare, but like we still do have those skills and we still have the ability to tell a really good story, but it is figuring out what that story and what that story audience is. What's great about talking to you about writing is this idea that Steph and I also always go back to is that the AI is never going to replace craft and craft knowledge and understanding your market and understanding what writing skills are and how to apply them because that's just the basic core of being a writer. And until you've mastered that writing core, all of these other tools aren't going to get you to where you need to go.
I agree completely. Yeah.
The craft is so important. We say it over and over again. You can't use these tools without knowing some craft.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that. That's the joy of what we do here and getting to talk to writers. And I know I could sit here and talk to you about craft and about AI and writing and intermingle all of it here for hours. So our final question is, what's your favorite AI tool?
Ooh, my favorite AI tool. Shoot.
It's
All
okay
right.
if you can't pick favorites.
You can have more than one. It's okay. It's okay.
I'm gonna, okay, two, yes. ChatGPT and Leonardo. Those are if I had to dump everything else, I could get away with just those two. ChatGPT is a terrific research tool. I like Claude too. Don't get me wrong. I know, but I had ChatGPT first, and so it's the one I keep on tending to go back to. It's a great research tool. It's great for helping me come up with ideas. It's great for looking things up. It's terrific for turning my notebook pages into text. It's just good across the board. And Leonardo's Phoenix, I really enjoy working with that model. The style really resonates with what I'm trying to achieve on my covers. And like every image AI has its own sort of baseline style that it veers toward. And that, for me, that particular one's really nice. There's other great models too. Ideogram is superb. It creates covers that are a little bit more realistic and a little bit less illustrated look. And I like the illustrated look better myself. Those two.
Those are two great tools. And especially now, ChatGPT, I feel like OpenAI is doing a really good job of innovating and coming up with new ways that it can be helpful. They just came out with that deep research a while ago. And that is really great because you can tell it a subject to go give me information on, and it will go and it will think about it for a while and then come back and give you a report. with links, and it's basically like a giant bibliography. You can go and find out where it got all of its information from. And yet it still continues to be a good, very competent writer, like every single one of their new versions that they come out with. So I cannot fault either of these choices. They're both great.
They're good choices. I also like what you were mentioning about Leonardo and the kinds of images that you like versus what the different image providers give you, because I think that is really important. We get this question a lot in the AI for Authors group where people say, what's the best AI for images? There isn't a best AI for images. There's the AI that's best for the images you want to create. And so it's great that you have figured out which one that is and why. And I think that why is really important too.
It doesn't mean I don't pay attention to the others. I've got Ideogram on my phone also, because this stuff changes. So I have my one that I really like, but that doesn't mean that I don't check out the other ones periodically too, because I always want to learn what else is out there.
Absolutely. I think that's, again, people who've been listening to us for a while know that I have my ongoing love affair with Gemini that sometimes wanes and sometimes fades, and others have their Claude love affairs, and that's fine. And it is important to at least know what the other ones can provide. And when Gemini or Claude let you down, there's somebody waiting in the wings.
So that's me with the Midjourney and ideogram. I don't even know how to say it properly. Anyway, I go back and forth between those two. I get like the more moody, like artistic stuff from Midjourney. And then if I want something a little bit more workhorse for my blog or for little other things that I'm making, or even for a book cover, then ideogram is where I go for that. And I think that this is pretty average and normal for most people who use AI. They have a couple of different tools that they go back and forth between, a couple different LLMs that they like, and then they tend to will try out something new that comes out, and then if it just doesn't work for them, they just go back to their favorites. I love the fact that we have so many to choose from right now. It's lovely.
I'm very pleased with this discussion because a lot of the things I was really hoping that Kevin would touch on, he did. I may have set him up to do that, but but seriously, we really could have Kevin on here for several more hours because I really enjoy talking to him and getting his perspective, because it really is interesting to see he's got such a different process from a lot of the other authors that we know who've used AI, and he found what works for him. And that's always the point of what we're trying to get across to people and let them know that there is something for everyone if that's what you choose. And if you don't want to choose to use it, that's okay too. So I know we say that a lot, but I feel like people really, really need to hear it. And the more we can let you know that it's okay to use AI however you want, the better.
I think that's a really important lesson. I think that's something that a lot of people have missed. They say, I don't want to write with AI. I want to write my own words. And then they're like, and then they assume that means, but which means I can't use AI at all. And that's not true. What I would suggest instead is to look at the parts of your work that you aren't enjoying, the parts that are dragging you down, the parts that you do not like, the parts that are wasting your time or taking time away from the parts that you do love, and look at ways that AI could reduce or replace those things. Because if you're not enjoying them, why not hand it off to a VA or an AI? Either way.
I agree 100%. I think that's what we've gone over a lot in the most of our interviews and some of our shows, because we just want people to find the things that work best for them. They're going to address those pain points in the process, and it's going to make this whole thing even more enjoyable, because that's what we're here for. We're here for the joy. We're excited about storytelling. So why not use these tools when we can?
Yep, totally agree. Bring that joy back.
Bringing the joy back. All right. So we're going to wrap up here. Kevin, thank you so much for coming today. I love talking to you. So anybody who wants to learn more about Kevin and his processes and some of the things that he mentioned today in the interview, drop on by bravenewbookshelf.com, read the show notes that we're going to put together. I'll make sure to have all the links in there. And I'm even going to snag some of Kevin's book covers and put them on the page as well, so you can see what he was holding up if you were just listening in and not on YouTube. And I will make sure that the full transcript is on the page as well, in case you have any questions and need to search for something that he might have mentioned that I didn't put in the show notes. Danica, why don't you tell everybody what they need to do for us?
What do you need to do for us? Ask not what. No, I don't know. Yes, please go to our Facebook page at Brave New Bookshelf. Please like and share our stuff. Please go to YouTube and subscribe and watch things on YouTube. Make sure you go look at the Future Fiction Academy stuff on YouTube as well. Subscribe and watch those videos. Check out Publish Drive on our socials. Do all the things. It really is important to everybody here. And also check out Kevin's stuff too, because seriously, the more places you like and share, the more the messages of all of these great people and great companies can get out to the world. So please do that.
Please do that. Okay. So everybody, we'll see you guys all in the next episode, and signing off from now. Okay. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on the Brave New Bookshelf. Be sure to like and subscribe to us on YouTube and your favorite podcast app. You can also visit us at bravenewbookshelf.com, sign up for our newsletter, and get all the show notes.